Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I'm starting. Assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Sadia Waheed Khan. I am doing my fellowship in pain medicine at Evercare Hospital, Lahore. It's an honor to be presenting on this forum of STSP, and I've been given an opportunity thanks to Dr. Atikur Rahman and the forum of STSP. I'll be starting. My topic is chronic post-surgical pain, and we'll be going through a review through the history, probable mechanism, risk factors, and the management options in chronic post-surgical pain. Next, please. Okay, so first of all, an overview of the history. Chronic post-surgical pain is one of the most frequent complications after surgery. And just like any other type of chronic pain, it poses an immense negative impact on patients' quality of life and puts an economic burden to the healthcare. Incidence 6 to 12 months after major surgery is 20 to 30% from BJA 2008. Incidence can differ depending upon the various risk factors that I'm going to describe later on. The concept of chronic post-surgical pain was first proposed in 1998 by Crombie and colleagues, who attempted to find out the contribution of surgery and trauma to the chronic pain. Please move next, please. Okay, this is the Journal of Pain, in which this study was published in 1998, titled Cut and Thrust, Antecedent Surgery and Trauma Among Patients Attending a Chronic Pain Clinic. This included about 5,130 patients attending 10 major clinics in North Britain. And this paper reported on the contribution of surgery and trauma to the chronic pain. So according to the author, he concluded that it could be unhelpful for pain classification system to combine surgery and trauma in a single category. So according to him, surgery and trauma and post-operative pain, after these two things, have to be separately categorized. Next, please. From 1998 to 2008, various definitions of CPSP evolved. Like in 2011, they defined it as pain that occurs after a surgical procedure and lasts for at least 2 months, while other causes of pain should be ruled out. In 2014, an update was proposed which included the above mentioned definition. It was updated that pain should be at least 3 to 6 months duration and should significantly affect the quality of life of the patient. Pain can either be a continuation of the acute post-surgery pain or may develop after an asymptomatic period, which was new. And thirdly, pain can either be localized to the area of surgery or it can be projected along the innervation of the nerve or along the dermatomal distribution. Next, please. Okay, so a milestone occurred in 2019 when the chronic post-surgical pain was included in the International Classification of Disease 11th revision. And then CPSP was recognized as a chronic health condition and as a separate entity with some unique diagnostic criteria. Next, please. This is all about the definitions which were evolved. I'm going to explain it later on in detail. Next, please. Okay, so in ICD 11, they defined the chronic post surgical pain as a persistent pain that occurs after a post operative period and may persist for 3 to 6 months. Number one. Number two, it should occur in the area of the surgery or may occur along the distribution of the nerve or dermatomal distribution. And also, they defined that they actually differentiated between the preoperative pain that may be present in a patient and the chronic post-surgical pain. So what they said that if the patient has pre-existing painful condition preoperatively and then after the surgery patient presents with a chronic pain, then how can we differentiate between these two? So a change in the intensity of the pain or change in the character of the pain or any spatial distribution that may help us in distinguishing that pain as chronic post-surgical pain or chronic pain. Next, please. Okay, these were the foundation levels on which the chronic post-surgical
अच्छा
pain
आपको
was
ना
put on
फेसबुक को
the
उठाते हैं ना पिक्चर
just
ऊपर लेकर आए उस पे भी लेके जाऊँ दूसरा बता भाई वाला
nice.
है नहीं कोई यहाँ
Okay, sorry for this. Okay, so they put the CPSP on various level of diagnosis. Like in this diagram, you can see that on first level of diagnosis, they have two entities: chronic primary pain or chronic secondary pain. pain. So chronic secondary pain is further divided into chronic cancer-related pain, chronic post-surgical or post-traumatic pain, chronic secondary musculoskeletal pain, and other types of pain. While in second level of diagnosis, they have separated the chronic post-traumatic pain and chronic post-surgical pain. So in ICD-11, the chronic post-surgical pain was distinguished as a separate type of pain that has to be separately diagnosed and separately managed. Next, please. Again, a diagrammatic explanation of the chronic post-surgical pain in as per ICD-11, which was published in BJA in 2019. Next, please. Okay, so chronic post-surgical pain can often show characteristics of neuropathic pain, and let me tell you that the prevalence varies between different types of surgeries. But whenever there are characteristics of neuropathic pain, this pain becomes very severe, and it has more intense effect on the patient's quality of life and greater limitations in the daily activities of patients. So we need to find out which patients are at risk of developing neuropathic pain post-operatively. Next, please. Next, please. Okay. Uh, please go to the back slide. Thank you. This has been taken from BJA. It shows incidence of CPSP for different types of surgeries. So the bad faces, they show the worst outcome or the worst incidence of CPSP in surgeries like amputation, which shows 85% incidence, and thoracotomies that show 71% incidence, while the incidence of a neuropathic component are more common in amputation and in patients who undergo inguinal herniatomies. Next, please. Coming towards the mechanism of CPSP. The mechanism of CPSP is a complex combination of central and peripheral mechanism that we study in all chronic pain conditions. So in peripheral sensitization, whenever there is tissue damage, it leads to inflammatory and immune mechanisms and responses, and also the damaged nerves at the surgical site, they form neuromas that lead to constant firing in. These nociceptive input or constant firing leads to wind-up phenomena in the spinal cord, which may lead to further central sensitization with altered brain processing, the descending inhibition is inhibited, which leads to further allodynia and hyperalgesia and dysesthesias. And also there are structural changes in the brain, and this all has been taken from the past literature. Next, please. Now the factors which are associated with the development of CPSP. So in the literature, we have found out mainly three types of factors, which are preoperative, intraoperative, and postoperative. In preoperative, pain, which is moderate to severe, of greater than 1 month duration preoperatively, redo surgery, or the pre-procedure psychological factors in the patients. Intraoperatively, we have the type of surgical approach, non-laparoscopic technique, or surgery in low volume center. That is like how much that particular type of surgery is being performed in that particular center. Postoperative factors include the acute pain, moderate to severe, neurotoxic chemotherapy, and radiation therapy to the site. And we are going to discuss this one by one in detail. Next, please. Please. Patients with back current, please. Okay, patients with preoperative chronic pain, particularly at the surgical site, they are at increased risk of developing CPSP. So pre-existing chronic painful conditions like fibromyalgias, migraines, low backache, they pose risk as well. And coexisting psychosocial predictors, anxiety, depression, they pose a risk. And one term that we learned from the literature is pain catastrophizing. So how can we define pain catastrophizing? It's actually, in my opinion, is the perception of a patient as per the postoperative pain, or tendency to magnify or exaggerate the threat value or seriousness of a painful sensation. So I think it is related to the perception of a patient on the postoperative pain. Patients tolerant to opioids have a risk of underestimation and underdosing of opioids postoperatively, so they also are at risk of developing CPSP. Next, please. This diagram has been taken from BJA review, which was about the incidence and risk factors of CPSP. The darkest color shows good evidence. The intermediate shade shows moderate evidence, while the lightest shade shows the lowest evidence. So the darkest shade shows that young age in adults, comorbs, lower education levels, smoking, and psychological factors like fear, anxiety, depression, or catastrophizing, these patients are at risk of developing CPSP postoperatively. While high BMI, female sex, single, living alone, or unemployed, and genetic factors, these factors have a moderate to low evidence for developing CPSP postoperatively. Next slide, please. Okay, this was published in Dove Press in year 2024. This is an umbrella review, which is actually a review of all the systematic reviews. The title was Identification of Pre-Surgical Risk Factors for the Development of Chronic Post-Surgical Pain in Adults. Next slide, please. So they took 39 pre-surgical factors, which were broadly divided into 6 main categories: psychological, pain-related, health-related, demographics, genetic, and social lifestyle-related. Strength of evidence, it varied across various reviews, which were reviewed under this umbrella review. But strong evidence was found in the patients with pre-procedure anxiety and the patients with preoperative severe pain. Next, please. So the surgical factors include the type of surgery, the extensiveness of the surgery, and the surgical trauma, the duration of surgery, the risk of nerve damage during the surgery, and the type of tissue injured. While postoperative complications and adjuvant therapies, radio and chemotherapy postoperatively, they also are risk factors for the development of CPSP. This is of particular importance to mention here that even minor surgeries like dental implants and melanoma resection do have a risk of towards the CPSP in patients. This was found out in a study which I have mentioned in the references later on. Then in another prospective study, it showed that a lack of identification of nerves like ilioinguinal and iliohypogastric is also correlated to the presence of chronic post-surgical pain following the herniorrhaphy in patients. Next, please. This is again the risk factor diagram taken from BJA. Darkest shade shows high evidence, intermediate and intermediate shade shows intermediate to low evidence. So longer duration surgeries with complications, patients with having adjuvant chemo and radio, and repeat surgery and nerve injury during surgery, they are risk factors for the development of CPSP in adults. Next slide, please. Now, the acute postoperative pain has been a consistent predictor of CPSP in all the literature that I have gone through. And duration of intense pain postoperatively, then trajectories, they are equally important. And postoperative pain with the neuropathic like symptoms in patients like herniorrhaphy or in patients with thoracotomies or mastectomies, this is also associated strongly with the neuropathic type of CPSP. So literature tells us that we need to screen the quantitative sensory testing tool or by screening by some neuropathic DN4 or neuropathic score to predict uh, the neuropathic CPSP in such patients in order to prevent them further. Next, please. Pain predicts pain. So preoperative uncontrolled pain is a predictor of severe CPSP. Postoperative severe pain is a predictor, but these are very complex risk factors. And postoperative pain may be due to inadequate pain management or heightened pain susceptibility. So both factors have to be taken into view while stratifying the patients at risk of CPSP. Next, please. Next slide, please. This is the visual representation of the same thing. Okay, genetic risk factors. So I have also gone through some genetic risk factors in literature, but this study or this research purpose is still under infancy. Mutations of gene of catechol O methyltransferase and the mutations in gene encoding mu opioid receptors have been shown to affect CPSP, but further research needs to be done. Next, please. Anesthetic risk factors include systemic general anesthesia versus spinal, which is preventive. general versus regional, and opioids use. So I've told you before that patients on chronic opioids, they have a risk that they have a risk of underdosing or underprescribing of pain medication perioperatively. So that also poses them at risk of CPSP. Next, please. So all of these risk factors have been taken from this article, which was published in BJA in 2022. Next, please. Now, previously we were talking about the risk factors of CPSP, but how to predict or stratify the patients at risk of CPSP. So various prediction models are present in literature, but none of them is valid. Various risk factors have been identified in all of this. So so we'll be talking about the factors which had a consistent evidence in the literature. So one of the most promising attempts so far was an investigation of more than 30 risk factors in 4 different surgical procedures done in 2020. The surgical procedure was thoracotomy, hernia surgery, mastectomy. They identified 6 factors which were important according to them: type of surgical procedure, age of the patient, physical health of the patient, mental health of the patient, preoperative pain in the surgical field area, and pain elsewhere. Next, please. Next, please. Okay. Another trial that I found out.
मेहमान हुए फिर हम रात को आ जाएंगे वापस फिर वही फिर अगले दिन सुबह को आ जाएंगे
Okay, so another trial that I found out yesterday was Periscope trial, a novel pre-surgical risk prediction model for chronic post-surgical pain in adults undergoing surgical procedure, a development and internal validation of the P-Prevoke questionnaire. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Backslide करें, please. Okay, so this trial aimed to formulate a prediction model preoperatively so that we can stratify patients at high risk of CPSP and manage them accordingly or reduce the risk factors. This trial included 4 parameters, which were pain at the site of surgery, the type of surgery, the education level of the patient, and the concerns related to the planned procedure. So again, the psychosocial predictors in preoperative pain was the major factor at the end of this trial. Next, please. Next slide, please. Now, similar to the adults, in pediatric patients are also at risk of developing CPSP, but the data and researchers are very limited. But interesting thing to be found out was similar to the factors in the adults, but here the parents' pain catastrophizing, parents' perception of their child's postoperative pain, and cognitive appraisal and education level was also responsible for the detection of CPSP in child, but more work has to be done in this regard. Next, please. Next slide, please. Okay, I'll go through like this. So, how can we prevent CPSP? So, number one is the management of the risk factors that can be modified. Then literature has 2 things: preventive analgesia over preemptive analgesia. So this we the preventive strategies, they focus on minimizing the impact of noxious stimuli, preventing the central and peripheral sensitization, and hence preventing the vicious cycle of chronic pain. Multimodal analgesia with combination of drugs has to be prioritized, and the general anesthesia has to be combined with regional techniques for analgesia to modulate the pain and to modulate the plasticity and to prevent the the acute postoperative pain and hence prevent the chronic post-surgical pain. However, long-term benefits are still under question. Please move to next slide. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Thank you. Now, the management of established CPSP. The management is established relatively less than the preventive strategies that I've told you earlier, but we can divide them as non-pharmacological management, pharmacological management, and the interventional management, and we'll be discussing them one by one. Next move, Karan, please. Okay, non-pharmacological interventions include, very important, the cognitive behavioral therapy and the psychosocial therapy. Number one. Number two is physical therapy. Number three is effective management of preoperative anxiety of the patient, depression of the patient, and any chronic pain state that is present already in that patient. An interdisciplinary team has to be required to manage the patient perioperatively. So in this term, transitional pain services role come into play because they closely monitor the patient perioperatively as well as in the time post-operatively after the discharge as well. Next, please. The first and a very important drug, ketamine. So ketamine in sub-anesthetic doses, 0.2 to 0.7 milligram per kg with infusion of 2 to 7 mics per kg per hour may reduce the opioid consumption and acute postoperative pain. So this is more apparent in patients who are receiving high dose of opioids before the surgery and those patients who have neuropathic component. So previously updated systemic review on drug treatments for the prevention of CPSP included 3,000 around patients in 27 studies, found no certain effects of ketamine on the prevalence of chronic pain after 3, 6, and 12 months. Next move, Karan, please. But a recent trial that I found out, it was a ROCKET trial, reduction of chronic post-surgical pain with ketamine, which was very interesting. This is a large multi-center randomized double-blind trial. Results are still awaited between 2025 and 2027. They included around 4,884 patients. IV ketamine was used at a dose of 0.5 milligrams per kg before incision, and the infusion continued 3 days postoperatively, but the results of this study are still awaited. For all the trainees, the ketamine is a NAMDA receptor antagonist, prevents the central sensitization, prevents the wind-up phenomena, enhances the descending inhibition, reduces the release of pro-inflammatory cytokines, weak agonist in mu receptor and has antidepressant effect. So the results of this trial are still awaited, so we cannot say as yet the results. Next, please. Gabapentinoids, favorite of a pain physician, includes pregabalin and gabapentin, act by blocking the presynaptic alpha-2 delta calcium channels in the dorsal horn. They are calcium channel modulators. They reduce the neuronal excitability and cause the dampening of pain signals, prevent the central sensitization, and stabilize the activity of abnormal nociceptive signals. Next, please. So, a meta-analysis which was published in 2021 showed that perioperative use of gabapentin does not reduce the incidence of CPSP. However, it is appropriate to use in certain population which are at risk of nerve damage during surgery, for example, complex spinal surgery. But still, more better designed studies are required to have a concluding result. Next, please. Lidocaine, a sodium channel blocker, membrane stabilizer, prevents the wind-up phenomena, prevents the central sensitization, has an anti-inflammatory role, may affect NAMDA receptors and calcium channels. So few studies have evaluated the effect of IV lidocaine on CPSP. However, no clear recommendations have been made. Next, please. In a systemic review that I found out in BJA 2024, the analgesic effectiveness of perioperative lidocaine infusions for acute and chronic persistent post-surgical pain in patients undergoing breast cancer surgery. It included RCTs which used IV lidocaine during the surgery only versus standard analgesic regime perioperatively, and they were followed up 3 to 6 months after the procedure. This review suggested that perioperative infusion of lignocaine does not reduce the risk of CPSP 6 to 12 months postoperatively. However, good results were found out in the immediate postoperative period, pain management wise. Next, please. Duloxetine, a serotonin noradrenaline reuptake inhibitor. It has an impact on pain modulation, descending, and mood and sleep improvement. In patients which have enhanced sensitivity, it may reduce the postoperative pain 12 weeks after surgery, but no clear recommendations can be made for the prevention of CPSP in the long term. Next, please. So NSAIDs and acetaminophen have so far have not been studied to be a means of preventing CPSP. However, they do have a role in multimodal analgesia to control pain in the perioperative period. Next, please. Steroids. As we all know, that surgical trauma leads to neuroinflammation. So I found a Cochrane review which resulted that no difference in CPSP was done when dexamethasone was given before hip replacement. They found significant difference in hyperesthesia by single dose of methylprednisolone prior to augmentation mammoplasty. And third study used stress dose of hydrocortisone after cardiac surgery and found positive impact on chronic pain and chronic stress symptoms. Next, please. Opioids. So opioids are the hallmark to be used perioperatively for the management of acute moderate to severe pain, and we know that good pain control is very crucial in preventing CPSP. However, I have read that strong opioids, they are associated with opioid induced hyperalgesia, in which remifentanil was of particular importance. Thus opioids, if used with other agents in controlled doses, can be a means of controlling postoperative pain and hence preventing the patient from developing CPSP in long term. Next, please. Next is regional anesthesia for the prevention of CPSP. So perioperative regional has been shown to reduce the risk of CPSP in most types of surgeries so far because it blocks the nociceptive input, prevents the central sensitization, and hence reduces or halts the vicious cycle of development of CPSP. So epidural analgesia, it reduces the incidence of CPSP in patients undergoing thoracotomies. Paravertebral blocks may reduce CPSP in thoracotomies. Continuous wound infiltration may be used. However, the level of evidence is low. Secondly, in most studies, only single shot procedures were evaluated, and long treatment need to be evaluated. Next, please. So these were the interventions that were recent when pharmacotherapy fails. Botox injections in painful areas of chronic post-thoracotomy pain. This was a study which was published in around 2024, which showed a patient coming to the clinics with the post-thoracotomy pain, and Botox injections were given subcutaneously, around 50 to 100 units. Then is phenol injections or radiofrequency ablation of stump neuroma and dorsal root ganglia have been found useful for stump and phantom pain. Radiofrequency percutaneous partial rhizotomy have been found to be useful in the literature. Pulsed radiofrequency treatments to the ilioinguinal and genitofemoral nerves after inguinal herniotomies, herniorefies have been studied. Neuraxial blocks, local anesthetic injections with or without steroids in the facial planes in patients coming to clinics for after with chronic post-surgical pain. Electric nerve stimulation and spinal cord stimulation have been mentioned in the literature. Next, please. This was a review presented in Journal of Neurosurgery about the benefit of spinal cord stimulation for patients with central post-stroke pain. So these patients presented with chronic post-surgical pain or chronic neuropathic pain post-stroke, and they were treated with the spinal cord stimulator. The mean pain score reduced by 42%, and they concluded that spinal cord stimulation may modestly benefit patients with CPSP. Next, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so in short, we need to see preoperatively that does the patient have preoperative risk factor for developing CPSP? Does the patient have preoperative pain? Is the surgery a high risk for developing CPSP? Is acute postoperative pain adequately controlled? Is the postoperative pain persisting longer than usual? So, in that way, we'll be able to stratify patients who can develop CPSP in the long term, and we can manage them or reduce the risk factors and follow them up later after 3 to 6 months of the surgery. So, concluding my session, CPSP is an important clinical and socioeconomic challenge. Procedure specific incident rates and surgery, as well as patient related risk factors, have been identified, and I have described some prediction models which have very limited application, but still the evidence for most pharmacological, not pharmacological methods is limited. However, we need to reduce the intensity of acute pain by adopting multimodal strategies, by adopting the local anesthetic infiltrations or regional anesthesia, and limiting the use of pre and perioperative opioids. But still, multidisciplinary concepts have to be implemented, or the role of transitional pain services have to be accepted in managing the patient's post-operative pain even after discharge to home. Increase in the awareness of CPSP needs to be done. Patient education has to be done. Clinician education has to be done. Overuse of analgesic agents are never without side effects and results in increased cost and healthcare challenges. Still, it is a challenge for researchers to accurately predict the patients at risk of CPSP and to enable the targeted prevention and then the management. So, although there is still much to learn about the mechanism and about the risk factors and about the relationship between acute postoperative pain and CPSP, but we can actually see the two main factors that were of particular importance. One was the preoperative anxiety or psychological factors, and the second one was the perioperative pain control of the patient, which were of particular importance in the development of CPSP in various literature. Thank you. If the audience has any questions, they can write in chat, or they can unmute themselves and ask the questions. And I would also like to request the seniors present and the participant to help me if any questions are asked about the practical aspects of management of chronic post-surgical pain, because it's a challenge to manage these patients if they come to the clinics.
Sadia, there are two questions in the chat box if you can see.
Yes, sir. Role of surgical technique in prevention. So, as far as literature is concerned, I told earlier that even the excision of a subcutaneous melanoma and even a dental implant may pose a risk in patients, or may make them prone to CPSP. So, I didn't find much about the specific surgical technique that may prevent the CPSP, because even laparoscopic hernia surgery patients had CPSP in literature. Next question is role of pain education and surgical and post-operative pathway in prevention. So as I mentioned earlier that in a University of Toronto, they took help from the transitional pain services clinicians to manage for the patient education preoperatively and for the management of pain of the patients even after discharge from hospital to the home, because these patients were followed up from 3 to 6 months post procedure. So I don't think we'll be having enough workforce to follow patients up. Sir Ateek, can you help in this question?
Yes, Sadia, first of all, whatever you have elaborated it very well. Um, the most important thing for the incidence or occurrence of the chronic post-surgical pain is the pre-operative factors. The incidence the patient has at the chronic existing chronic pain condition like backache, migraines, and also associated anxiety and the depression there. The rest of the factors like the surgical techniques and the site of the surgery, they are important as well, but their importance is not as much as compared to the other factors, as I mentioned there. So these pathways does have a very important role, particularly in managing the acute pain. So if you have established guidelines and the protocols in your institution, they do help in managing the acute pain. Because we know the poor perioperative, poor postoperative control itself is a risk factor. So having these pathways established in your hospital obviously going to reduce the incidence of the chronic post-surgical pain.
Thank you, sir.
आई थिंक इसमें दो चीज़ें हैं जो आपने इस क्वेश्चन में बात जो हमारे सेटअप्स में इम्पोर्टेंट है। एक तो जो अतीक साहब ने फैक्टर्स कमेंट कर दिए, उन फैक्टर्स को कंसीडर करते हुए पेशेंट्स के परसेप्शंस, उसके आइडियाज़ को और उसकी जो इश्यूज उसको रियलाइज करते हुए पेशेंट ओरिएंटेड केयर एंड पोस्ट ऑपरेटिव एनाल्जेसिया इम्पोर्टेंट कंपोनेंट है। और उसमें जो 2-3 चीज़ें जो हमारे सेटअप में हम कर सकते हैं और उसमें आई थिंक अच्छा खासा स्कोप भी है, वो जो हम यूजुअली यहाँ बहुत कम प्रैक्टिस है प्री ऑपरेटिव ब्लॉक्स की। यूजुअली हमारे यहाँ ब्लॉक जो है ना वो सर्जरी के बाद लगते हैं। तो प्री इंसिजन ब्लॉक्स जो हैं दैट कैन मेक अ मेजर डिफरेंस। उसके बाद कुछ मेडिसिन जो पोस्ट ऑपरेटिव या पेरी ऑपरेटिव एनाल्जेसिया के तौर पर कम्बिनेशन में है, जो भी हम इतना ज़्यादा यूज़ नहीं कर रहे, उसमें रोल ऑफ कैटामीन है जो हम बहुत कम यूज़ या बहुत रेयरली यूज़ करते हैं। आई थिंक इसके ऊपर वेस्ट में काफ़ी ज़्यादा काम हो रहा है और हम यहाँ काफ़ी अरसे से कर रहे थे, लेकिन हम इसको एक्यूट पेन में इतना अच्छा लाए नहीं जितना कि इस वक्त बाहर काम हो रहा है। आई थिंक ये 2 कंपोनेंट जो हैं एक्यूट पेन में, एंड अगेन टारगेटिंग जो पेशेंट्स के प्री ऑपरेटिव इश्यूज हैं जो अतीक साहब ने मेंशन किए, उनको कंसिडर करते हुए पेशेंट के लेवल्स के लिहाज से एनाल्जेसिया देना, rather than कि हम क्या दे रहे हैं वो उसके लिए इनफ है या नहीं।
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Leena here. Sadia, good presentation on your part. अच्छा, Dr. Liaquat, I would like to add here कि a thorough pre-operative rounds by the anesthesia teams and satisfying the patients, I think that would go a long way in the management and in allaying the anxiety of the patient. I think pre-operative clinics अगर हम बनाना शुरू करें और उसमें पेशेंट्स को टाइम दें तो ये काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें एड्रेस हमारे सेटअप में हो सकती हैं।
एब्सोल्युटली एग्री। और उसमें एक और कंपोनेंट है, वो है ट्रॉमा के पेशेंट्स में प्री ऑपरेटिव ब्लॉक्स के, खासतौर पर ये जो CPSP है, ये ट्रॉमा के पेशेंट में सबसे ज़्यादा इंसिडेंट्स है जो उसमें प्रॉब्लम है। तो उसमें अगर आप जितने भी पेशेंट्स हैं इनको प्री ऑपरेटिवली वन रिसीव है, जरूरी नहीं कि जब आप सर्जरी हो तो आप उसके बाद ही उसको उसका पेन कंट्रोल अच्छा करें।
So in the chat section, Dr. Chaudhary has asked about the incidence of chronic post-surgical pain in Pakistan. So personally, I am not aware of any study that has concluded the incidence of CPSP in Pakistan. We do have a study that's a national level survey where we have concluded that the incidence of chronic pain in Pakistan is more or less similar to the global incidence. That's around 17%. And we have broken that figure into the various types of the pain, and the top is the low backache. But that's a very interesting question, and that's also an opportunity for the residents to study the incidence of CPSP in Pakistan.
And of course, there is no study. I agree with Dr. Ateek. But you can, or we can tell at least our experience कि हमारे पास सेटअप में कितने % पेशेंट आते हैं। मैं अगर देखूं तो 5 to 10% पेशेंट होंगे जो persistent post पेन के होंगे। मेरे पास इतने, not more than 10%.
Sir, I would agree. Same is the figure for our pain clinic.
ठीक। क्वेश्चन किसी ने भी किया था कुछ? एक क्वेश्चन बीच में आया था किसी का, फादर को PCNL हुआ।
Yes, sir. Question है, my father had PCNL for kidney stone 5 months ago. He has developed burning pain around surgical area. He feels fine during the night when he is going to sleep. During the day, he feel burning pain. Please explain it and how can we treat it?
Evaluation, assessment, evaluation is important. तो आगे जब देखेंगे नहीं, कुछ कमेंट नहीं कर सकते, जो भी होगा देखे बगैर
Yes,
कुछ
sir.
नहीं कहा जा सकता.
Yes, sir. Another question: is marijuana effective for chronic post-operative pain?
I have no experience. I have no experience.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So we did have a talk about the cannabis marijuana by Dr. Gohar Afshan about I think 2 months ago, and the evidence for the marijuana. I'm just like giving two-liner answer to this question. So that was the conclusion of that talk. The marijuana or the cannabis for the chronic pain is still inconclusive. And IASP and the Royal College of Anaesthetists UK, Royal College of Australia and New Zealand doesn't recommend its use for the chronic pain. So there is a lack of solid evidence, but we know like it's coming up in the pain, but it's all in air yet.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, please?
Assalamu alaikum. Dr. Tahir here. Just a comment on all this. एक सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम हमारे सब कॉन्टिनेंट कह लें या थर्ड वर्ल्ड में, वी डोंट कलेक्ट डाटा. तो जब तक हम डाटा कलेक्ट नहीं करेंगे तो हमें सारे ये फैक्ट्स एंड फिगर्स जो हैं हम बोरो करते हैं फ्रॉम द वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड. तो आई हैव बीन सजेस्टिंग सिंस लॉन्ग टाइम वी मस्ट हैव टू स्टार्ट एक्यूट पेन सर्विस, स्पेशली इन पब्लिक सेक्टर. हमारे माशाल्लाह इतने बड़े हॉस्पिटल हैं, मोर देन 2000 बेड्स, 3000 बेड्स. तो अगर हम एक्यूट पेन सर्विस स्टार्ट करेंगे तो रेजिडेंट्स विल रोटेट monthly basis or whatever you schedule, how you schedule them as per your strength. So it will be their duty to collect data. एक बंदा 1 महीना या 2 महीने कंटिन्यूस एक सब स्पेशलिटी में है, so they will know more about their patient, they will follow up their patient, they will start a treatment and complete that. और फिर उसकी बेस पे एक continuous data collection रहेगी हर जगह पे. तो I think then it will be much easier to come up with certain solid strategies. So this is just my suggestion कि इस meeting में भी people from different bigger hospitals are there. So we should sit down and think how we can start acute pain service.
बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं आप साहब.
Sir, excellent
Thank you,
idea,
sir.
Dr. Tahir.
Thank you, Atiq bhai.
So that the take-home message is that it is a known entity, recognized entity, post-op pain, persistent post-op pain, and all pain physicians must take into consideration whenever they see a patient complaining of pain in the post-op periods. Even surgeons should be made aware of this entity. I'm sure many surgeons are not aware of this entity. So उनको इनकी एजुकेशन भी बहुत ज़रूरी है कि उनको बताया जाए कि ये हो सकता है, और persistent पेन हो तो हमें प्रॉपर कंसल्टेंट को रेफर किया जाए.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you. Do we have other comments or questions?
Thank you, Sadia. I think we can conclude the session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone. Thank you, sir. Office.